Hey there, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to this video. It's about my fourth game at the WTC in October. Dread Elves against Orcs and Goblins. So I've played against Vermin Swarm so far, against Dwarven Holds, against Undying Dynasties, and now I'm up against Orcs and Goblins. It's the new Legendary Army book, and we will see what is in the list. First off my list, so once again, this is the fourth video in the series now. So I have mostly militants and I have an evocation master, and the rest is basically built around that. Double Mist Leviathan also helps out quite a lot. Then we have Little Cow with Orcs and Goblins. So I'll go through everything a little bit because it's a new book. An Iron Orc Loner on a Wyvern is a model that cannot join any units. It does Plate Armor Death Cheater that you know, hand weapon Omen of the Apocalypse. Omen of the Apocalypse wasn't an item before, but now it's different. Now for every other unit that is in combat at the moment that you resolve the combat that the model is in, you get +1 strength, attack, and AP, I believe, for each other combat and your own combat or something. So if there's a lot of combats on the table, you end up with a character with like 7 strength, 8 attacks or something. Just insane. Yeah, he strikes really hard if there's a lot of hard stuff on the table. Nice model. Now we have an Orc Warlord General, Iron Orc Warlord on a Wyvern as well. Essence of Mithril with a great weapon. And the attack Nasher gives you 2 extra attacks at strength 5. At your own agility, I believe, and Talisman of Shielding is 5 up Aegis, Dragon Staff is a Dragon Staff. We have an Orc Shaman, Wizard Master and Shamanism. This is also quite self-speaking. Then we have Feral Orcs. So Feral Orcs currently have AP 0 in their profile and AP are Strength 4 and Battle Focus. And all the Orcs have the same rule as with the Omen of the Apocalypse, that if there's any other unit on the battlefield in combat, they get +1 attack, but it's capped at +1 attack. Veteran Orc Marauders are the Orc Boar Boys with a banner of speed. And then the Goblin Reavers are the fast calf of the army. Iron Orcs are Iron Orcs. They're basically just a big block of stubborn orcs. Then the Giant with Arm to the Teeth means that it has Weapon Master, I believe. And then it can use any kind of weapon that is close to it in other units, like it can borrow the weapons of Iron Orcs or something like that. And Wrecking Teams are basically the same thing, just cheaper and do a little bit less damage, but I mean, at this price point, why wouldn't you take them? So we are playing on this map, and we just rolled for deployment. I have more pictures for this one than for the previous one. But this was before deployment, and this is after deployment. We are playing marching columns and capture the flags. So marching columns for this army that I am playing is not that much of an issue, because basically the militants want to be in the center, the Thunder Pack want to be on one flank. You want to spread out the chariots, you want the Mist Leviathans either giving cover to the Witch Elves if your opponent has a lot of shooting, or just to protect your flanks. And the rest is just sprinkled around. It's not that difficult of a deployment game, basically. For my opponent, he has the big blocks of orcs in the middle, indicating that it's going to be quite a straight-up fight, right? He has double Wrecking Teams on the flank. I put my Black Cloaks there to deal with them a little bit better, and we will see what will happen. So my opponent was first. And he took a bit of a different approach than I normally see people do. So he put his characters in front of his units and just ready to charge in the next turn, which is normally people just shove forward their units and then they have the characters behind, because then they're in a safe position and stuff like that. And my opponent was like, nah, I'll just race forward with my infantry and put my characters in front, which was actually quite scary. And I didn't really expect it. So especially the mobility and the flexibility of these characters, I was quite impressed by it. But it's a different style of play. Probably it mostly works if you have very long charge ranges yourself. And orcs nowadays actually gets there. With the Warcry still giving you +1 advance and also an extra instance of maximized. So that means that the Wyverns actually roll 4 dice when they charge, and you discard the lowest 2, and they go to an advance of 9. So that is pretty far. As a consequence, I have to reform my militants to be a little bit more ranked, because I feel like in this case I can tank a Wyvern and a Giant. I cannot, however, tank a Wyvern, a Giant, and a unit of Veteran Marauders. They look quite far away, but on the charge they will have advance 10 and they have double maximized. So at this distance they're like 21 inches away. I think they need an 11 to get there, which is quite 50-50, I would say, maybe. So my thought here was with this well, reactive deployment, I would say, probably my opponent can charge into my Witch Elves with the Veteran Orcs, the Giant, and the Wyvern. But if he does so, then he will fail likely one of the charges, and if he fails one of them, I greedily think that I will hold. Because either it's the Wyvern and the Giant and he needs to do, what was that, 15 wounds to break my steadfast? If it's the Veteran Orcs and the Wyvern, then the Veteran Orcs don't even get in because they get blocked by the Giant. And if it's the Veteran Orcs and the Giant, then I might still be in trouble, depending on how much damage I can do. And how much damage my opponent can do, obviously. Yeah, otherwise this is the what happens. Then in my opponent's turn, he does make the charges, and he makes all of them. So in the end, he has to align like this. I don't know if he had a choice. He could have put the Giant on the place of the Wyvern and the Wyvern on the space of the Giant. But he could not have put these guys in the middle, because first the Giant has to go, and then these guys have to go, because he could. Just trying to see. I am 7 wide, so I'm 14 millimeters wide. He is 6 cavalry models wide, so he's 15 centimeters wide. So he's wider than I am, so he cannot put these guys in the middle and put the rest on the corners. So he has to go for this, basically. So we have the Giant, we have the Wyvern, we have the Orcs, and we have the other combat with the Wyvern against my Raptor Chariot. Basically, I just wanted to lock my opponent in place here. I didn't really expect that much out of my Chariot. Maybe doing a wound, maybe even 2. And in the end, I did do 2 wounds, I believe. So I was expecting that my Chariot would just get killed over there, but that was a sacrifice I was willing to make in order to block my opponent there. Yeah, so this combat, my opponent completely annihilates my militants. Mostly actually because of the just the Veteran Orcs, because they have 2 attacks per model. I think they themselves killed like 8 or 9 militants. Then the Stomp of the Giant also killed a bunch. I only managed to deal 2 wounds onto the Orc Marauders, so I didn't really break his second rank. I don't remember if I still had like 12 militants left to have 1 extra rank, or if I didn't, but it didn't really matter because he just broke me. I'm just gonna quickly see what the next one is. Oh, the next one is still this. So by now the field is quite different. So just from the previous picture, we have this one. So what happened here is that the Giant, he overran into the effigy of Dread. The Wyvern overran into blank space, because if he would have stayed, then he would have just been gone, basically. And the Veteran Orc Marauders overran into the Beast Breakers. And then after that, the Giant was over here. My Manticore could go into the side of the Giant, overrun into the Veteran Orc Marauders. That meant that I stuck in combat for a round, and then afterwards I broke and I fled past my militants. The general of my opponent was here. So the giant got killed in combat. Then the general had to take a panic check, which is not minimized. And he failed that without a reroll, and then he was gone. Which was just like, how did this happen? Okay, like 500 point model, gone. And then otherwise here, yeah, the Beast Breakers were still just chilling. And yeah, in the grind, these guys don't really have that much of damage output. The Wyvern of my opponent with the Apocalypse thing, he did manage to beat down the chariot. He did manage to charge my guy on Raptor, but he only had one wound remaining. So I will be striking first with my 5 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 4s with AB6, which meant that I killed him before he could strike, so I could get a reform, and then basically this was the point where the game became over really quickly. And yeah, on the flank still I didn't manage to shoot out some wrecking teams, so my opponent got my Black Cloaks, but I kept my Mist Leviathan. And yeah, this was the state where, as I said, it was kind of over, because I could charge in with my Raptor Chariot onto the flank of these Veteran Orc Marauders. I opted for the Raptor dude to stay facing this way, charge into the Feral Orcs together with my Hunting Chariot and with the Mist Leviathan. That resulted in a break test for my opponent that he didn't make, and then he fled off the table. And basically we get to this picture. So he did clean up my my Beast Breakers. I am still in combat with him. I am rallying with my Manticore. My opponent has the Totemic Summon, but I'm not that impressed. I positioned my Thunder Pack in such a way that my opponent could charge me if he wanted to. He would end up in the front. He would have an option for an overrun if he wanted to. Then I would get him with the Militants. I could also elect not to, and then he would be there. He could also elect to charge in and reform, and then he would be there in between my Mist Leviathan and Militants. So basically I would get 2 combat units that can go into the Orcs. And this is still from after my turn 6. The Militants went in, killed 18 Iron Hawks in 1 round, suffered some damage themselves. I believe my opponent stuck for a round, and then we did another combat round, and then it was all over. Yeah, so that was a 16-4 for me. I did lose quite some stuff. With the Temple Militants, with the Beast Breakers, with the, what else did I lose? Raptor Chariot, Hunting Chariots. Yeah, I did lose quite some stuff. My opponent lost everything. And objective-wise, I won because I had 1 scoring unit left. And my opponent had lost 3 scoring units, so I did get that one. So it's 16-4 for the Dread Elves. Yeah, I was quite surprised by this move, and I think it's quite a cool move to do, especially with an army like Orcs and Goblins, where you can get a very high advance. I think a lot of people will underestimate the amount of that bashers. I think this is also the way to do it, and army composition wise, like this giant should have been here, I think. Because then you really put some pressure onto your opponent. Then again, you want some reliable charge ranges. With your giant, you get to advance 8 with Swift Stride rather than double maximized. Don't know if there's anything in the Orcs and Goblins army that can charge further nowadays, but if you can, then it might be an idea to change out the giants for that. Yeah, it was a nice battle. Yeah, it was just a good game. So I hope you enjoyed this report, and I'm hoping you're impressed with the power of the Temple Militants, because I'm certainly impressed. And with that, I will see you then next time.